The man on the line didn't give me an address. He gave me a number. 0. For a second, I thought it was a joke. People joke when they're scared. They laugh, they flirt, they swear they're fine while bleeding out on a kitchen floor. I've learned to hear the crack in the voice, the little static between who they pretend to be and who they actually are. This voice didn't crack. It dragged. Air scraped through his throat like he was breathing through wet cloth. Every inhale rattled. Every exhale sounded thinner than the last. "Sir," I said, keeping my tone even, professional, the way they train us. "I need your location." There was a pause. In the background, something beeped. Not the soft, uneven noise of a heart monitor in an ambulance. This was sharper, precise, mechanical. Under it, a low hum. Electric, constant, like a room full of machines that never slept. "They reset us at 0, he said. A chill slid down the back of my neck. "Who resets you?" Another breath. Wet. Shaking. "0 shift, he whispered. "That's where they take your name away." I glanced at my screen. The system was already trying to trace the call. No incoming number. No routing data. Just a blinking error message where an address should have been. "Sir, stay with me," I said. "Tell me what happened." Metal clinked in the background. Something rolled, a distant murmur of voices. Too calm, too controlled. Not panic, not chaos. A lab. I didn't know how I knew. I just did. "They said it would make it quiet," he breathed. "They said it would stop the pull, the wanting." He was a werewolf. I could hear it in the way his breath hitched, in the low, instinctive growl buried under the weakness. Omegas, betas, alphas. We all carried our tells. If this story caught you, subscribe. More are waiting. His was fear fighting something older. My fingers went cold against the console. "Listen to me," I said. "You're not alone. I can send help. I just need to know where you are." A soft sound, almost a laugh. "You can't send anyone to 0. The beeping spiked. Then the line went dead. For 3 long seconds I stared at my screen, waiting for the system to catch up. To give me something. A coordinate. A tower. A ghost of a location. Nothing. After exactly 3 minutes, the call auto-closed. Error. Unverified source. False alarm. I should have let it go. Filed it. Moved on to the next crisis. Instead, I pulled up the raw audio log and saved it to a private folder the system wasn't supposed to have. My ears were ringing. My fingers felt like they didn't belong to me. And somewhere deep in my chest, an instinct I didn't have a name for yet had started to scream. Night shift always smells the same. Burnt coffee, plastic, ozone from overheating equipment. A sterile electric scent that clings to your clothes long after you go home, like the city branded you while you weren't looking. The dispatch floor was lit in blues and soft whites, rows of consoles glowing like a mechanical tide pool. Heart rates pulsed on wall screens. Tiny ambulance icons crawled through a grid of streets. Somewhere above us, the ventilation hummed its endless, exhausted lullaby. I sat in my usual seat, 3rd row from the back, headset crooked over one ear, fingers hovering over a keyboard worn smooth by other people's panic. "City Emergency Services, this is Lou. What's your situation?" A woman sobbed. A man shouted. A child coughed so hard I could hear the echo of it in my own chest. "Normal. This job trains you to call that normal." By 1:17 a.m., I'd handled 2 overdoses, one domestic screaming match that turned out to be a couple throwing plates at each other over a missing cat, and a guy convinced his neighbor's ficus tree was watching him. "It blinked at me," he insisted. "Sir," I said, typing in his address, "if your plant develops eyelids, I promise you'll be the first to know." He actually laughed, hung up calmer than he'd called. Small victories. Across the room, a few-day shift people were finishing reports before clocking out. Sarah stood near the lockers, immaculate as always, hair perfect, blazer still crisp. She lived for daylight, for management visibility, for the slow climb up a ladder I'd stopped seeing years ago. "Another thrilling night in paradise?" she asked, grabbing her bag. "Always," I said. The ficus uprising is just beginning, she snorted. You should come to days. Real cases. Real connections. Real meetings, I said. Real memos. I'd miss the chaos. She shook her head like I was a lost cause. Maybe the first was. By 2:03, the board lit up with a multi-vehicle accident on the South Bypass. I routed 2 ambulances, coordinated fire support, and handed the incident over to City Emergency Coordination. That's when his voice cut into my headset. Dispatch, this is Coordinator Ethan Cole. Cancel Unit 12's redirection. They're needed at the bypass. I stiffened. Cole. Even if I didn't know his name, I'd know that voice anywhere. Smooth. Controlled. Every word clipped to function. The kind of alpha tone that made people straighten without realizing why. Negative, I said. Unit 12 is 3 blocks from a cardiac arrest. Bypass has coverage. Coverage with longer response times, he replied. The bypass situation is escalating. I'm reallocating. I pulled up the map, fingers moving faster. You're moving my closest unit away from an active code, and I'm preventing a pileup from turning into a mass casualty event. You don't hear him, I snapped. I do. He's not stable. There was the briefest pause on the line. A recalculation, not doubt. Never doubt. Cancel the redirect, Lou, he said. That's an order. Heat flared behind my eyes. With respect, you're looking at dots. I'm listening to a man who might not make it 10 minutes. Then route another unit. There isn't another that can reach him in time. Then we prioritize. The word hit harder than it should have. I clenched my jaw. Fine, but this is on you. I'm aware, he said. And cut the line. Unit 12 veered off on my screen, its icon sliding away from the blinking marker of the cardiac call. I stayed with the man, counted his breaths, talked him through pressure, through fear, through the slow dimming in his voice. 7 minutes later, the bypass was stabilized. 9 minutes later, another unit reached my caller. Too late. They found him slumped in a laundromat chair, skin already cooling, the smell of detergent sharp in the air. Time of death scrolled across my screen, in thin white text. I stared at it longer than protocol allowed. Around me, the room kept moving. Phones rang. Chairs rolled. Someone laughed softly at something on their monitor. The city didn't care about one more line going quiet. I did. I leaned back, rubbing my face with both hands, anger burning low and useless in my gut. I knew the math. I knew the logic. Cole hadn't made a wrong call by the book. But books didn't listen to people die. When I straightened, a new message blinked on my console. A short internal note from coordination. Good work stabilizing the bypass. No mention of the man in the laundromat. No space for the part of the night that didn't fit into reports. I slipped my headset back into place, jaw tight. Somewhere in the city, a body was cooling. And somewhere above me, an alpha with a perfect voice was already moving on to the next emergency. So was I, even though something in me hadn't. I didn't expect to hear Ethan Cole's voice again so soon. Not after the laundromat. Not after the way he'd said prioritize like it was a clean thing. Like it didn't leave anything behind. The night kept moving, though. It always does. New calls stacked over old ones, each crisis shoving the last further into the dark. Around 3:30 a.m. a system-wide incident flag lit the upper corner of my screen. City Emergency Coordination had taken over a high-rise fire near the river, which meant Cole was back on my channel. His voice slid into my headset with the smooth certainty of someone used to being obeyed. All units in Sector 4 switched to command routing. Dispatchers, hold standard intake unless redirected. Behind his words I could hear the command center. Keyboards, layered voices, the low electronic thrum of a room designed to watch everything at once. I pictured it without meaning to. The city's nerve center, all glass and steel and overlapping screens. Cross-feeds of traffic cams, medical telemetry, aerial views of burning rooftops and pulsing intersections. A place where the city wasn't streets and people, but patterns. Cole lived in patterns. Fire crews are en route, he continued. Ambulance teams will stage at the south perimeter. I want response time updates every 90 seconds. He was precise. controlled, no wasted breath. An alpha built by infrastructure. I routed calls, logged updates, fed data into the machine he conducted. Somewhere between my third timestamp and my fifth reroute, I realized he hadn't stopped talking. Not in the way coordinators usually did. Brief bursts of instruction, then silence. Cole stayed on the channel, threading responses, anticipating problems before they fully formed. He was good. I hated how easy it was to hear that. The fire climbed 2 floors. A stairwell collapsed. A crew got separated. For 11 minutes, the command channel was a constant current of motion. Then, finally, the worst of it passed. Primary evacuation complete, a captain reported. Fire is contained, Cole exhaled. Not into the mic. He probably didn't mean to. But the line was open. And the sound slipped through anyway. Low, tired, human. Copy that, he said. Good work, everyone. Begin stand-down procedures. One by one, units signed off. I stayed. Partly because it was my job. Partly because I was listening for something I couldn't name. There was a pause. The kind that usually meant a channel was about to go dead. Instead, Cole spoke again. Dispatch, he said. Not to the room, but to me. You still there? Always, I replied, before I'd thought it through. Another beat. You handled intake clean tonight. It wasn't praise. Not exactly. More like a factual observation. Still, it landed somewhere warm and unexpected. Thanks, I said. You coordinated well. The ghost of a laugh touched his voice. Barely there. High compliment. From you, I frowned. We've spoken, what, twice? Enough. Something about that made my pulse shift. The command center noise had thinned. I imagined him standing alone now. City lights smeared across glass walls. Screens dimming one by one. Long night? I asked. A breath. Then, surprising me, he answered honestly. They're all long. Yeah, I said. That's kind of their brand. This time, he did laugh. Soft, almost disbelieving. Fair. Silence stretched between us. Not dead air. Something suspended. Then, quieter, he added. You should rotate off soon. You've been on since dusk. So he'd noticed. I will, I said. When the city stops trying to kill itself, let me know when that happens. I'll send a memo. Another small pause. The line didn't drop. Cole? I said. Yes? The laundromat pressed at the back of my skull. The word prioritize. The way he hadn't hesitated. I didn't say any of it. Instead, I said, you never hang up first. There it was. The truth I'd been circling. On the other end, something shifted. I could hear it in the almost silence. A chair moving. Fingers brushing a console. Habit, he said. Someone might still need the line. The answer was simple. The meaning under it wasn't. Good night, coordinator, I said. Good night, dispatcher. The channel finally clicked closed. I leaned back in my chair, eyes lifting to the dark windows of the dispatch floor. The city glowed faintly beyond them. A living thing stitched together by wires and voices and people who never really slept. For the first time since he'd overridden me, Ethan Cole wasn't just the alpha with the perfect voice. He was a man who stayed on the line after the sirens ended. And I couldn't tell yet whether that made him more dangerous or more interesting. There's a special kind of quiet that only exists after 3 a.m, not the peaceful kind, the hollow kind, the one that feels like the building itself is holding its breath, waiting to see if the city will survive the rest of the night. That was the quiet I stepped into when I slipped off the dispatch floor. Officially, I was on a short break. Unofficially, I was about to do something that could cost me my job if anyone upstairs cared enough to look. The archive wing sat 2 levels below active operations, past a stretch of corridor most people forgot existed. The lights were dimmer there, the air cooler, humming with the steady exhale of servers that never slept. I badged through the first door, then the second. The archive room glowed a dull blue, wall-to-wall storage arrays blinking like restrained stars. Every call, every breath, Every last word anyone had ever said into our lines lived somewhere in that room, including the man who'd said 0. I slid into a terminal and logged in under my standard credentials. Then, after a moment's hesitation, under an old override token I was technically no longer authorized to have, the system accepted it. My pulse kicked. I pulled up the call. Listened again. They reset us at 0. I isolated the audio profile. Ran it through symptom tagging. Respiratory distress. Neuromuscular suppression. Elevated stress response. Nothing unusual. Everything wrong. So I widened the net. Same symptoms. Same kind of breathing. Same dragging cadence. Same flat terror. The screen began to fill with flags. Calls from different months, different districts, different callers, all of them tagged originally as overdoses, panic episodes, psychotic breaks, unstable shifter reactions. All of them closed quickly, all of them routed, after initial contact, to the same small cluster of medical facilities on the outer ring of the city. My mouth went dry. I pulled up a city map overlay and marked the drop points. 3 centers, all privately operated, all labeled as long-term rehabilitation or instinct stabilization clinics. I zoomed in. Roots formed like veins. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, then moved faster. I opened transfer logs, cross-referenced ambulance paths, scanned coordinator authorizations. A name surfaced again and again in the approval fields. Dr. Adrian Hale, medical consultant, behavioral recovery specialist, contracted to advise emergency services on non-standard werewolf responses. I clicked into his profile. Awards, publications, a spotless professional record, and a smile that felt like it belonged on an ad for something expensive and hollow. The first flicker of unease sharpened into something colder. I filtered for patient follow-ups and found nothing. Not no updates, no entries. As if the people who went to those centers had stepped out of the system entirely. I cross-checked hospital databases, rehabilitation reports, mortality logs. There were holes, not big ones. Small, careful ones. The kind that didn't look like errors, unless you were specifically hunting for them. My leg bounced under the desk. Okay, I told myself. Breathe. There are explanations. Administrative restructuring. Privacy contracts, external transfers, except I pulled up one of the flagged cases from 6 months back, a beta named Marquez, brought in after violent tremors and sensory collapse, dispatched to one of Hale's centers. His file ended 2 hours after intake. No discharge, no transfer, no death, nothing. I searched his name. No trace. Not in city health systems, not in missing persons. Not even in census adjustments, like he'd never existed. A thin electric thrill slid under my skin. Fear, yes, but also something sharper. Pattern. I saved screenshots, exported root data, copied audio tags into a hidden partition tied to my personal access key. Every click felt too loud. I half expected security to flood the room, to drag me out between the blinking racks of other people's last moments. No one came. The servers hummed. The city breathed. And somewhere inside its bones, something was very carefully erasing names. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the lattice of glowing lines on my screen. 0 shift. Reset. Take your name away. I closed the files and wiped my access trail as clean as I knew how. When I stepped back into the corridor, the overhead lights buzzed softly, painting the floor in sterile white. The building looked the same, sounded the same, but I wasn't. Whatever this was, it wasn't an accident, and I had just crossed the line between dispatcher and witness. I didn't know yet what that would cost me, only that I wasn't going to be able to pretend I hadn't seen the pattern. And patterns, once you notice them, don't let go. Mara always called in like she was stepping onto a stage. "Dispatch, tell me you've got something exciting," she said, her voice bright in my headset. If I hear the words, possible intoxication one more time, I'm stealing the siren and starting a band. I smiled despite myself. Pretty sure that's a felony, only if I get caught. She was driving Unit 7 tonight. Senior medic. Sharp hands. Sharper mouth. The kind of person who could joke while stitching you up and somehow make it feel like a favor. Where are you? I asked. Industrial East, she said. Which means either someone fell into something toxic, or someone's trying to hide a body. Comforting. You love me. I tolerate you in a professional capacity. Devastating. Her laughter crackled over the line. It was a good sound. The kind that made the night feel less heavy. I was about to assign her a routine transfer when a new call flashed red on my screen. Unknown source. Unverified routing. No fixed coordinates. My fingers went cold. Mara, I said slowly. Stand by. Ooh, mystery tone, she teased. I'm listening. I opened the line. For a moment, there was only static. Then a sound. Low, uneven breathing. Too slow, too controlled. A faint, metallic echo under it. Mara, I said, eyes locked on the empty location field. I'm patching you into a live caller. Copy. The voice came through both our channels. I need help, the caller whispered. Mara's tone shifted instantly. All humor gone. This is emergency medical services. Can you tell me where you are? A pause. I don't think they want me to know. My stomach tightened. Who's they? She asked. The answer was lost in a sudden clatter. Something falling. Distant voices, calm, annoyed, not panicked. Then the caller breathed. They don't like it when we stay awake. The words raised every instinct I had. Mara, I said, I can't get a trace. I'm trying to isolate background noise. Copy. Hey, she said gently into the mic. You're doing great. Just stay with us, okay? What can you see? I can see the floor, the caller murmured. It's very clean. A soft, wet sound. Hey, Mara said, and there was steel under the kindness now. Talk to me. Are you hurt? They said it wouldn't hurt. The line crackled. Then Mara made a small, startled sound. Lou, I've got something on my thermal… What? There's a heat signature about a block north of me. Big structure. No registered address. Looks like an old distribution site. Send me the feed. She did. The image bloomed on my screen. A skeletal building hunched between warehouses, windows black, doors sealed. Rerouting you, I said, already moving. Proceed with caution. Always do, she said. Then, quieter. Hey. This feels… off. I know. She took a breath. Guess tonight's the night we find the secret lab, huh? I almost laughed. Almost. Unit 7 turned. On the map, her icon slid toward the dead zone. Mara, I said, keep your external channel open. Was planning on it. Wouldn't want to deprive you of my charming commentary. She rolled to a stop. The camera feed jolted as she cut the engine. Okay, she said. I'm outside. This place is… wow. Creepy in a very expensive way. I leaned forward, heart starting to pound. Describe. High fence. No signage. Motion lights just came on. That's never ominous. Mara, relax. If I don't come back, you can have my plant. Don't joke. She went quiet for a second. Then, softer, Lou? Yes, if I tell you something weird, promise you won't file it under Mara being dramatic. My throat tightened. I promise. There's a smell, she said, like antiseptic and… rain. But it hasn't rained. A faint hiss came through the line. Mara? I said. Static. Mara, respond. The camera feed jerked. For half a second, I saw light. White. Too bright. A blur of movement. Then the signal cut. Her unit icon froze. The channel stayed open. Empty. Mara, I said again, louder. Unit 7, respond. Nothing. I pulled coordination, flagged the loss of signal. My hands were shaking as I typed. On the command channel, Ethan Cole's voice cut in. Sharp. Dispatch. Explain the disruption on Unit 7. I've lost contact, I said. She was responding to an unverified call in Industrial East. Her feed went dark. Transmit last known coordinates. I did. Hold, he ordered. Seconds. Stretched. Then, from another channel, command, Unit 7 is mobile again. Returning to base. Relief hit me so hard my vision blurred. Mara? I said, switching back. Mara, do you copy? No answer. Her icon began to move. Slowly. Too smoothly. No vitals. No camera. No audio. Just a vehicle on autopilot, sliding back into the city grid. When it reached the bay, security logged it as a routine return. I was already on my feet when the notification came in. Unit 7, crew status unavailable. I pulled up her profile. Error. I searched her ID. Nothing. Mara, who stole coffee from the break room, who named her equipment, who once talked a dying man into singing with her so he wouldn't be afraid. Mara wasn't in the system anymore. My ears rang. My chest felt hollowed out. Around me, the dispatch floor kept breathing, but something vital had just been taken out of it, and it had taken her with it. The city didn't slow down when Mara disappeared. Calls kept coming. Icons kept moving. Sirens stitched the dark together like nothing had just torn a hole in it. I handled 3 more intakes on autopilot before my hands started shaking badly enough that I had to lock them together under the console. Mara's empty unit was still logged as under review. Her name was still missing. I couldn't stay on the floor. I routed my board to standby, flagged a temporary break, and slipped into the side corridor where the internal lines were housed. Old infrastructure, rarely used, intentionally forgotten. There was one number there that wasn't on any official list. City Emergency Coordination. Direct Command Access. Ethan Cole's line. I stared at it longer than was reasonable. Then I put my headset back on and keyed the channel. The tone was different. Lower. Not routed through dispatch. No automatic recording indicator. Just open air. Coordinator Cole, I said. This is Dispatcher Lou Calder. I need to speak with you off log. The response was immediate. Who authorized this channel? I did. A pause. I imagined him in that glass and steel command center. The lights dimmed now, most of the staff gone. Only the screens left to keep him company. This line isn't for dispatch use. Neither is erasing medics, I said. Silence crashed down the channel. Then quietly, explain. My unit went dark on an unverified call. No coordinates, no trace. Now the vehicle is back, and the medic doesn't exist in the system. I swallowed. Her name was Mara. Another breath I wasn't sure he meant to let me hear. That's not possible. It happened. You're emotional, he said, too quickly. There are system faults that can cause. Don't, I snapped. The word came out sharp enough to surprise both of us. Don't reduce this to a glitch. I've been in the archives. I've seen the repeats. I've seen the transfers. The line hummed. What transfers? He asked. To Hale's centers, I said. The same 3 locations. The same symptoms. The same vanishing files. You sign the authorizations. His breath stopped. For a second, I thought the channel had dropped. That's a serious accusation, he said finally. Then tell me I'm wrong. He didn't. My jaw tightened. You reroute them. You move units. You approve specialized care. And then they disappear. I don't make people disappear, he said. No, I said. You just move them where someone else can. The words hung between us. Heavy. I trusted you to listen, he said. And there was something brittle under the control now. Not to build conspiracies in server rooms. This isn't a conspiracy, I said. It's a pattern. And it just took someone I know. Another pause. Longer. Then, when he spoke, his voice had changed. Lower. Stripped of command. I sign the transfers, he said. Yes. My chest constricted. They come flagged through the system as instability cases. High risk. Potential public danger. Hale's clinics are contracted for containment and treatment. The data I'm given says... He stopped. Started again. Says they improve outcomes, reduce violent incidents, lower fatality rates. And the missing people? I asked. They're logged as long-term residents, he said. Restricted access due to medical privacy. Or they're logged as nothing, I said. Because it's easier. Silence. Then, softly, I didn't look past the metrics. The admission didn't sound like a defense. It sounded like a confession. I'm not on the floor, he went on. I don't hear their voices. I see timestamps, response curves, risk projections. His breath shuddered. If something disappears cleanly enough, the system tells you it was handled. My anger wavered. Not vanished. Wavered. Someone is using your authority, I said. And my access. And every tired person in this building who just wants the night to end. Another long stretch of quiet. In it, I became acutely aware of how alone we both were. Two people awake in a city that refused to be. Her unit returned, he said. That shouldn't have happened. No, I agreed. It shouldn't. The channel crackled faintly. Lou, he said. It was the first time he'd used my name. If what you're saying is true, he continued, then something is operating inside emergency infrastructure. Yes. And if I start pulling at it, he said, I won't be able to pretend I didn't. That's kind of the point. A sound that might have been a humorless breath escaped him. When did you stop being just a dispatcher? He asked. I thought of Mara's laugh. The empty ambulance bay. The word, 0. When she didn't come back, I said. We sat in the unrecorded dark together, two open lines and a truth that didn't care what either of us wanted. Send me what you have, he said at last, and for the first time since I'd keyed the channel, his voice didn't sound like command. It sounded like someone asking for help. 2 nights after Mara vanished, the city handed me a ghost. The call came in just after 2 a.m., male, unknown age, found sitting in the rain outside a closed metro entrance, not hypothermic, not injured, not responsive to standard questions. I patched the nearest unit through, and watched the camera feed bloom onto my screen. He was barefoot. That was the first thing that didn't fit. Cold pavement, wet concrete, neon bleeding into puddles, and him, sitting cross-legged like he was waiting for someone to come home. His hair clung dark to his face. His clothes were clean, too clean for a man who'd supposedly been outside for hours. Sir, the medic said gently, can you tell me your name? The man lifted his head. His eyes were open. They just weren't in them. I think I forgot it, he said calmly. A chill slid through me. What's your last memory? The medic asked. He considered this, like someone flipping through an empty notebook. A room, he said. Very white, very quiet. They were very proud of how quiet it was. I keyed the command line. Cole, I said when he answered. I have a live intake that matches the patterns. Route, Metro East. I'm sending you the feed. He was silent for less than a second. Hold him, he said. Don't send him to general intake. The medic glanced up at the ambulance camera. Dispatch? Change of destination, I said. Proceed to North River ER. Trauma Bay 3. That's out of our route. I know. In my headset, I heard the faint background of the coordination center shift. New channels opening. Systems waking. I'll clear it, Cole said. The ambulance pulled away from the curb. The man, Roan, as he would eventually tell us he thought he might be called, didn't react to the motion. Not when the doors shut. Not when the siren whooped once in warning. His pulse was slow, steady, wrong. In the back of the ambulance, a medic shone a light in his eyes. They hurt? She asked. No, Roan said. They used to? Yes. Before they fixed it, the medic's jaw tightened. Fixed what? The part that tried to leave. I felt my hands curl into fists under the console. North River's trauma bay was quiet when they arrived. Night staff. Muted lights. The soft choreography of a place designed to catch what the dark threw at it. They wheeled him through double doors. Cole stayed on the open line. I've flagged him under discretionary hold, he said. No automatic transfer. Good, I replied. Roan's gaze drifted as he was moved. He didn't track faces. didn't flinch when they cut away his wet clothes, didn't tense when cold stethoscopes touched his skin. "What did they do to you?" one of the nurses asked softly. He thought about it. "They asked questions," he said. "Then they asked them again. But slower. With lights." "Lights?" "Yes, behind my eyes. They said it would teach my instincts to rest." The words slid out of him without tremor. "They said wanting is a malfunction." I tasted metal. "Did they give you anything?" the nurse asked. "Sometimes," he said. "But mostly, they took things away." "Like what?" He frowned. "Not in pain. In confusion. The feeling that told me when someone was close," he said. "The one that made the world smell like things. The one that pulled." He paused. "Being a werewolf felt loud," he added. "They made it very quiet." The room had gone still. On my end of the line, I realized I was breathing too fast. "Roan," I said into the mic. "Do you know where that place was?" He turned his head slightly, as if he could hear me. "Everywhere," he said. "But mostly under places people don't look." "What about names?" I asked. "Doctors. Buildings." "Dr. Hale," he said without hesitation. He had very clean hands. Cole swore under his breath. A nurse drew blood. A monitor beeped. "What happens to people who don't get better?" the medic asked quietly. Roan's mouth curved, almost curious. "They reset them," he said. "Sometimes they try again. Sometimes they don't." "Reset how?" "They take away the part that remembers being wrong," he said. "Then they send you back out. Or they don't." I shut my eyes. On the other end of the channel, I could hear movement. Cole standing. A chair pushed back too hard. "We're not sending him anywhere," he said. "No longer to me, but to someone else in the room with him. Lock his status. Internal review." Now, I opened my eyes. On the screen, Roan sat under soft hospital lights, water dripping from his hair onto a blue blanket. Alive. Here, a line not yet erased. The first one. "We can't give him back," I said quietly. "No," Cole replied. "We can't." Something hard and bright settled in my chest. Fear was still there. Horror, too. But under them, something else had formed. A decision. Whatever Zero Shift was, it wasn't taking him. And it wasn't taking anyone else without a fight. We didn't go back to the dispatch floor. Not after Roan. Not after Hale's name landed between us like a live wire. Cole rerouted me internal clearance under the pretext of a system integrity review. It was the kind of access only coordinators and auditors usually touched, which meant if this blew up, it would blow up on him first. The server level was colder than the archives. No windows, no ambient city glow, just long corridors of black racks breathing in synchronized rhythm, their lights blinking in quiet, coded conversations no one human was meant to hear. Cole appeared on one of the security feeds as he badged in from the other side of the complex. Dark suit, sleeves rolled to his forearms, tie gone. He didn't look like command. He looked like someone who hadn't slept. "I'm pulling restricted routing tables now," he said over the internal line. "The ones tied to Hale's contracts. Already cross-referencing call closures," I replied. "I'm seeing manual overrides buried under automated tags. That's not supposed to be possible." "It is," I said. "If you write the automation," the first file surfaced like it had been waiting. Program designation, Zero Shift. The title alone made my skin prickle. Cole opened it on his end. I mirrored it on mine. A schematic unfolded across both our screens. Not a single protocol. A framework. Routing funnels. Intake flags. Behavioral scoring. Instability thresholds. Automatic reroutes masked as efficiency optimization. Under emergency infrastructure. Inside it, Zero Shift wasn't a department. It was a shadow system that lived in the gaps between others. "They're using emergency services as a feeder," Cole said slowly. "We identify, transport, and disappear their subjects without ever calling them that." I scrolled. Clinical language. Corporate formatting. Budget projections. My throat tightened. "They have revenue models," I said. "Look at this." Hale's centers bill as long-term neurological rehabilitation. The city pays per intake, per containment, per successful stabilization. And successful, Cole said, voice flat, is defined as cessation of disruptive instinct expression. I closed my eyes for a second, wanted to throw up, wanted to tear something apart. They're not fixing anyone, I said. They're sanding them down until they don't cause trouble. Until they don't resist, Cole corrected. Another layer opened, transfer logs, internal memos, and then buried deeper, the real archive. Names, hundreds of them, flagged, routed, cleared. I recognized patterns, call numbers, partial IDs. Marquez, the man from the laundromat. 3 others I remembered by voice if not by file. And my breath caught. Mara, I whispered. Her name sat in a column labeled Asset Reclassification. No date of discharge, no outcome, just a status code. Active. She's alive, I said, gripping the edge of the console. Cole didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was low, controlled in a way that felt deliberate now, not instinctive. Look at the scope. I scrolled. My screen filled, not dozens, hundreds, across districts, across years. Emergency pickups, clinic intakes, transport reroutes, a lattice of quiet removals hidden under response time optimization and public safety metrics. They're not experimenting on a few people, I said. They're running a supply chain, Cole replied. The words settled between us, heavy and precise. Not a rogue lab, not a corrupted program, a business, a city-funded, system-integrated, profit-stabilized machine built on the bodies of people who didn't fit cleanly enough. They even built fail-safes, Cole said. If a unit questions a reroute, the system downgrades their access. If a dispatcher flags inconsistencies, their interface privileges quietly narrow. I thought of how hard it had been to pull data, of how natural it had felt to blame exhaustion. They trained us to stop looking, I said. Yes, he agreed. And to call it efficiency. Silence followed. The servers breathed. Somewhere above us, ambulances were still running. Calls were still coming in. The city was still breaking in the same small, endless ways. They've been doing this for at least 6 years, I said. Probably longer. And Hale is only one node, Cole added. There are financial partners, behavioral patents, military interest briefs. My hands felt numb. They turned emergency response into a recruitment net. Yes. And 0 shift? Cole's jaw tightened. That's the window, he said. The hours no one audits. When oversight sleeps. When errors get buried under low staffing and high volume. 0. Where they take your name away. I stared at the glowing columns of data. At the evidence. At Mara's status. At a system that had learned how to eat its own and call it order. This isn't something we report, I said slowly. No, Cole replied. This is something we break. And for the first time since I'd met him, his voice didn't sound like command. It sounded like resolve. We ended up in Cole's office because there was nowhere else left to be. The server level felt contaminated now. The dispatch floor too exposed. Every corridor between them full of systems that had learned how to lie. His office sat high in the building, glass-walled and usually lit like a control bridge. At this hour, only the city light reached it, thin bands of gold beginning to bruise the edge of the horizon. Dawn, the most dishonest hour. Cole closed the door behind him and didn't turn the lights on. For a long moment, we just stood there. 2 silhouettes reflected in glass. The city spread out beneath us like something already dissected. They'll audit this, he said finally. The access logs, the restricted pulls. If we move openly, internal security will bury it before it ever reaches a public channel. So we don't move openly, I said. That means falsifying reports, rerouting units, interfering with live operations. Yes. He turned to face me. In the growing light, I could see the strain in his expression now. Not command, not Polish, fear. Do you understand what you're asking me to do? He said quietly. I don't lose a job if this goes wrong. I lose everything. Certification, clearance, the ability to work in any emergency infrastructure again. That's the part you're worried about? I asked. His jaw flexed. I'm worried about leverage. They didn't build something this integrated without contingencies. If we trigger them before we can extract proof, before we can get people out, they will shut us down and clean it. And if we don't, I said, stepping closer. They keep doing this. They keep taking people like Mara and Roan and filing them under metrics. His eyes flicked to the window. To the city. I was trained to prevent worst-case scenarios, he said. This is one. No, I said. This is the worst-case scenario. It's just already happening. He looked back at me. For the first time since we'd started talking, his control slipped. What if I can't protect you? He asked. The words surprised us both. I let out a breath that was half a laugh. You're not protecting me now. You're protecting a system that eats its own because it learned how to justify it. He flinched. You want to talk about worst-case outcomes? I continued. My voice felt steadier than I was. I sit in a room full of screens and hear people's last words. I already live there. So don't frame this like you're introducing me to risk. Silence thickened. We don't get to be neutral in this, I said. Not anymore. He watched me like he was seeing me for the first time. I rerouted that first unit because the numbers told me to, he said slowly. I signed Hale's contracts because the reports told me outcomes were improving. I convinced myself that if something disappeared cleanly enough, it meant it had been handled. Yes, I said. And if I choose not to see now, he went on, I am complicit. Yes. The word landed without softness. Dawn edged higher, catching on the glass, turning the office pale gold. If we stay silent, I said, we are them. The line between his brows deepened. He looked tired. Not exhausted. Tired in the way people get when something they built their identity on breaks. They will notice when I start diverting, he said. We'll have a narrow window. Hours. Maybe a night. That's enough. For what? To get people out, I said. To get proof. To find where they're holding Mara. His breath caught at her name. And after? He asked. I didn't pretend to have a clean answer. After we deal with the fallout. Another long silence. Then he moved. Not away. Toward the desk. He opened a drawer and removed a thin security card, black, unmarked. Zero shift runs off an auxiliary routing core, he said. Isolated from primary emergency networks. Hale's access node sits under the old transport hub on 9th. I felt something in my chest unlock. This card gets us into the back-end corridor, he continued. Past that, I can't guarantee anything. You never could, I said. The corner of his mouth twitched. The smallest thing. He extended the card toward me. I'm in, he said. I took it. Our fingers brushed. Static climbed my arm. The city was fully waking now. Sirens in the distance, morning traffic building like surf, and in the quiet glass room above it, something irreversible had just been chosen. Zero shift didn't look like a villain's lair. It looked like infrastructure. That was the first thing that made my stomach twist as the surveillance feeds came online on my console. Long, polished corridors under the old 9th transport hub, soft lighting, clean floors, the quiet efficiency of a place designed to make people stop asking questions. Medical carts, transit elevators, unmarked doors. No screaming, no chains, no drama, just systems. Multiple intakes moving between levels. Cole said in my ear, his voice low and fast. They're active tonight. Of course they were. They always are. We had 3 ambulances under our control, crews we trusted, rerouted under false maintenance flags and phantom emergencies. On my screen, their icons peeled off normal city flow like drops of mercury. I was no longer just dispatch. I was weaving lies into the bloodstream of the city. Unit 12, take the south access ramp, I said. You're clear. Unit 7B, hold at tunnel gate until I give you green. A pause. Dispatch, a voice cut into the command band. We're getting conflicting route orders. I felt the pressure spike in my ears. They were noticing. Stand by, Cole said, switching channels. On another feed, I saw him step into a glass-walled oversight bay. A supervisor stood across from him, gesturing sharply at a hollow display. I couldn't hear the words. I didn't need to. "Cole," I said quietly. "They're on to you." "Yes," he replied. "I expected that." On my board, internal system notices began stacking. Unauthorized route modifications detected. Dispatch interface privileges pending review. Command clearance verification in progress. "They're throttling me," I said. "I'm locking you to manual routing," Cole answered. "You'll lose predictive assistance, but they won't cut your board yet." The city map dulled. Automated suggestions vanished. For the first time since I'd started this job, I was flying blind. My hands moved anyway. "Unit 12, you're clear to enter," I said. "Proceed." No lights, no sirens. The old access tunnel yawned open on the camera feed. Concrete ribs, abandoned signage, dust ghosting in the air. Inside zero shift, movement shifted. Security teams adjusted. Doors sealed. "They're isolating levels," Cole said. "They're trying to contain, then we don't let them." I routed Unit 7B to the garage entrance. Unit 5 to a secondary loading dock. 3 points. 3 exits. "Dispatch," one of the medics murmured, tension threading her voice. "This place is wrong." "I know," I said. "Just stay with me." On my screen, Unit 12's camera cut to interior, white corridors, then beds, rows of them, people lying far too still. My throat closed. "Cole," I said. "They're full. I see it." Then I saw her. Bay 3, second row from the wall. Dark hair pulled back, a familiar tilt to her head even in unconsciousness. "Mara," I breathed. She lay under thin covers, monitors whispering. A soft band of light circled her wrist, pulsing faintly. "Active. Alive. Unit 12, Bay 3, I said. "Female." "You're pulling her first," the medic swore softly. "Copy." Security alarms spiked. Not loud. Internal. Doors began to slide. "They're sealing corridors," Cole said. "I'm losing back-end control." "And I'm losing mine," I replied, as 2 of my panels went black. New voices flooded the internal bands. Compliance officers, systems techs, a supervisor I recognized by cadence alone. "Coordinator Cole, step away from command interfaces immediately." He didn't. "I'm invoking emergency moral override," he said. There was a stunned half-second of silence. "That designation doesn't exist," the supervisor snapped. "It does now," Cole replied, and pulled his clearance. Every restricted door in the building lit green. In zero shift, the medics ran. Beds unlocked, straps cut, people lifted, half-conscious, confused, some resisting, some weeping soundlessly. "Dispatch, we're moving 7, Unit 5 said. "We can take 2 more." "Take them," I said. "All of them." Another system notice bloomed. "Command authority revoked. Emergency coordination privileges terminated." Cole's line went dead. "Cole?" I said sharply. "Nothing." My chest seized. Then, another channel cracked open. Older, narrower. "Still here," his voice said. "Rougher now. They've locked me out of primary. I'm rerouting through municipal transit. They fired you." "Yes." I let out a breath that trembled. "I'm sorry." "Don't," he said. "This is lighter than pretending." The garages filled. Stretchers rolled. Vehicles loaded. Security tried to cut exits. I forced routes, killed feeds, sent phantom fire alerts across 3 districts to pull oversight away. The city bucked like a living thing under my hands. "Mara's out," Unit 12 said, and I nearly collapsed in my chair. Pulse, steady. She's not waking, but she's breathing. "Good," I whispered. "Get her clear." The last ambulance surged into the tunnel. Behind it, zero shift's doors slammed. Inside, I could see personnel scrambling. Systems choking. They were losing control. So were we. "Dispatch," a medic said. voice shaking with something like awe. We've got 18. 18 people. I stared at the number. 18 lives that were supposed to be neat lines in a spreadsheet. Proceed to North River, I said. All units. Trauma intake protocol Cobalt. No diversions. They vanished into the city grid. Behind them, my panels went dark one by one. Dispatch interface privileges suspended. My board died. The room fell quiet. No calls. No icons. Just me, in a chair that suddenly felt too big. A final message blinked before the screen went black. Incident logged. Under review. I pulled my headset off with shaking hands. Across the silent building, somewhere far above me, a man had just been unmade by the system he'd served. And somewhere under the city, a machine had lost its grip. For the first time since Mara vanished, my chest felt like it might actually draw a full breath. We had done it. We had broken something that wasn't supposed to be breakable. And in the quiet, after the sirens, I let myself feel it. The fear, the adrenaline, and the fierce, trembling relief of knowing that when the city tried to erase people, we had taken some of them back. We didn't plan to end up on the roof. It just happened. The building was quieter than I'd ever heard it. No ringing lines, no overlapping voices, no pulse of a city being fed through wires, just the low murmur of morning traffic far below, and the thin whistle of wind moving between structures. Cole was already there when I pushed the door open. Jacket off, shirt sleeves rolled, elbows braced on the concrete edge as he stared out over the city like he was seeing it for the first time. Or maybe the first time without filters. I closed the door behind me and stood there for a moment, suddenly unsure what came after saving people you weren't supposed to touch. He turned when he heard me. Up close, the cracks were impossible to miss. Dark shadows under his eyes. A faint tremor in his hands he didn't bother hiding. The kind of exhaustion that went deeper than sleep. They've sealed my access, he said quietly. Internal review, external audit. I'm officially done. I know, I replied. I stepped closer, joining him at the ledge. Below us, the city was waking without apology. Sunlight spilled across rooftops. Steam rose from vents. Somewhere, someone was laughing too loudly into a phone. Life didn't pause for moral crises. How does it feel? I asked. He considered. Lighter, he admitted. Terrifying. But lighter. A breath left me that I hadn't realized I'd been holding. They can't put this back, he continued. Not cleanly. Too many internal flags tripped. Too many eyes. Good, I said. They shouldn't get to clean it. For a while, we just stood there. Then he huffed a quiet laugh. I spent 8 years optimizing response models, he said. And the thing that finally broke the system was a dispatcher who refused to log a call. Excuse you, I replied. I also broke several protocols, and possibly a city ordinance. He glanced at me, something warm and surprised flickering through the exhaustion. Rebellious, he said. Don't get used to it. That earned a real smile. The first one I'd seen. It changed his whole face. The edge softened. The command presence loosened its grip. For a second, he wasn't a coordinator or an alpha built by structure. He was just a man on a roof at dawn. I laughed quietly, the sound slipping out before I could stop it. Maybe from relief, maybe from disbelief. 18, I said. We got 18. He nodded. And Mara, the word felt like a small miracle. His hand lifted without ceremony and rested on the ledge between us. After a second, mine did too. We didn't touch. Not yet, but the space between our fingers felt charged, like the pause before a line opens. You didn't have to do this, I said. You could have buried it. Protected yourself. I was protecting myself, he replied. Just not the version I liked. The wind tugged at his shirt. At my hair. The city moved. I don't know what happens now, he added. Neither do I. He glanced down at our hands. Then, slowly, deliberately, he shifted his. Our fingers brushed. This time, neither of us pulled away. The contact was simple. Warm, real, not a spark, not a claim, an anchor. I'm glad it was you on the line, he said quietly. Something in my chest eased open. Yeah, I replied. Me too. We stood there as the sun climbed, two people no longer routed by systems, watching a city that didn't know how close it had come to losing something essential. The sirens would start again soon. They always did. But for this moment, there was only light, and the steady human presence at my side, and the strange, fragile sense that something new had just begun. The new center doesn't smell like plastic. That was the first thing I noticed on my first morning there. It smells like coffee. Like disinfectant that hasn't been baked into recycled air. Like rain someone tracked in on their shoes. Like people. The sign outside still doesn't have a proper logo. Just black letters on glass. North River Outreach. Crisis Support and Recovery. Inside, the walls are warm colors. Someone put up a crooked bulletin board with handwritten shifts and badly drawn stars next to people's names. Mara's handwriting is impossible to miss. She limps a little now, laughs louder than she used to, calls everyone sunshine in a tone that suggests she absolutely does not mean it. Roan volunteers in the back room, helping others relearn things Hale's people tried to sand away. He still moves carefully, still pauses before words, but sometimes I catch him smiling at nothing, like the world surprised him. I don't sit behind a console anymore. I sit across from people. I listen without a headset between us. No routing algorithms. No response time metrics. No city map reduced to glowing dots. Just voices. Real ones. Ethan works in the field now. Training teams. Coordinating rescues the old way. Boots on pavement. Eyes on people, not projections. He looks different without a command center behind him. Less untouchable. More here. Some nights, when the center is quiet and the city hum drifts in through open windows, one of us will pull out the old radio we salvaged from storage. It barely works. The range is terrible. The sound warbles. We turn it on anyway. Out of habit. Out of memory. Out of something like reverence. Dispatch? He'll say sometimes, voice deliberately over-formal. I'll look up from whatever I'm doing and answer, just as seriously, "Go ahead, coordinator." Then one of us will snort, and the whole thing falls apart into laughter. We don't use the emergency channels anymore. But the line between us never really closed. The city still breaks in small, endless ways. People still fall, still get lost, still wake up in the dark needing a voice to remind them they're real. The difference is, now those voices belong to people who can reach back. I think about the man who told me zero was where they take your name away. He wasn't wrong, but he didn't know the rest. Zero shift doesn't end when the system's shut down. It ends when someone stops being a function and starts being a person again.